The 30-30 Winchester is illegal to hunt deer with in Ohio, illegal in Michigan, illegal in Iowa. The most famous timber cartridge this country ever built cannot legally go into the woods in 3 of the biggest whitetail states on the map, and it is number 5 on this list for exactly that reason. Inside 150 yards, every round here kills a deer, so the ranking is built on the 3 things that actually separate them: where you can legally carry it, whether the ammunition and the rifle still exist in 2026, and what the bullet holds together on heavy shoulder bone. Worst to best, worst to. Start with the 30-30. If you hunt straight wall country, hit subscribe now, because 2 of the rules in this video changed recently enough that hunters are still carrying rifles they cannot legally use. It fails on the shape of the brass, not the bullet. Ohio requires a straight-walled cartridge, .357 caliber through .50 caliber. Michigan's limited firearm zone requires straight-walled, .35 caliber or larger, with a case length between 1.16 and 1.80 inches. Iowa requires an expanding bullet, .350 through .500. The 30-30 is a bottlenecked case, throwing a .308 diameter bullet. It misses Ohio on shape and diameter, misses Michigan on shape and diameter, misses Iowa on diameter. 3 strikes, 3 states, and no load you can buy changes any of it, because the rule is written about the brass. Everything else about this cartridge is right, which is what makes the placement sting. Remington publishes the 150 grain core locked at 2,390 feet per second and 1,902 foot-pounds. The 170 grain runs 2,200 feet per second. Hornady's lever revolution, with the 160 grain FTX, is listed at 2,400 and 2,046 foot-pounds. Those numbers matter because of the one thing that decides whether a deer bullet works, which is not energy. It is how fast the bullet is still moving when it arrives, measured against the speed it needs to open. A conventional lead core soft point wants somewhere around 1,800 feet per second on impact to expand the way it was designed to. The 150 grain core locked does not drop under that until roughly 230 yards. The 170 holds it to about 175. So inside timber range, the 30-30 opens every time, on every shot, without exception. The published work on those soft points puts weight retention around 80% with frontal expansion near 17 millimeters. On a 200-pound whitetail at 80 yards, that is the whole job. Add the shelf. Every ammunition company in America loads it in a dozen bullet weights, and it sits in gas stations that sell licenses. There is a used Marlin 336 or a Winchester 94 on a consignment rack within 30 miles of you right now for less than a decent scope costs. Add the rifle it comes in, because in thick cover, the gun is part of the argument. A Winchester 94 carbine runs around 6.5 pounds with a 20-inch barrel and almost nothing hanging off it. A Marlin 336 is close behind. That is a rifle you carry one-handed through Greenbrier all morning and mount without catching a branch. And it is the reason this cartridge earned the reputation it has. Nobody was carrying a 9-pound bolt gun into a laurel thicket in 1950, and the 150-yard ceiling on this video is the 30-30's best friend, not its enemy. The complaints people have about this cartridge, the arcing trajectory, the energy falling off a cliff, the 170 grain bullet running out of expansion speed before 200 yards, all of them live past the range this video is about. Nothing in the woods this list describes happens far enough out for any of that to matter. What the ban costs you in practice is worth spelling out, because it is not an abstraction. Illinois runs a listed straight wall rule of its own, and the 30-30 does not appear on it either. So a hunter in southern Michigan, western Ohio, most of Iowa, or straight wall Illinois owns a rifle that is legal to shoot on a range, legal to carry in a truck, legal to hunt other things with in some cases, and illegal to point at the animal it was built for. There is no permit, no exception, and no bullet weight that fixes it. That is a cartridge you have to leave home, and leaving it home in the middle of the country is what puts it at the bottom of a list about timber deer. Indiana is the one that moved back in your favor. Under the current rule, any centerfire rifle .223 or larger is legal for deer there, so the 30-30 is legal in Indiana again. And in any centerfire country, Pennsylvania, New York, the big woods of northern New England, it remains one of the best close-cover deer cartridges ever designed. Check your own state book before you load anything, because straight wall rules get rewritten more often than people expect. Number 4 is the 4570 government, and it falls for 2 reasons. Michigan bans it outright, and its one famous advantage does not exist. The Michigan part is arithmetic. The case measures 2.105 inches. Michigan's ceiling is 1.80. There is no version of this cartridge that fits. Ohio takes it because Ohio puts no length limit on a straight-walled case, and Iowa takes it, but the single state with the most straight-walled deer hunters in the country will not. The second reason is the one worth staying for, because the 4570 is the patron saint of the brush gun. The belief is that a big, heavy, slow bullet plows through twigs and saplings and stays on line, while a small, fast bullet gets swatted off course. It has been tested with numbers more than once, and it is not true. Outdoor Life ran it in November of 2022, Tyler Friel doing the shooting. 15 yards of willow and alder up to 1.5 inches thick, target at 50 yards, deflection and keyholing counted. The 6.5 Creedmoor with 143 grain ELDX averaged about 12 inches off, with 80% of the bullets arriving sideways, which is what everyone expects. Then look at the brush guns. The 350 Legend in 180 grain, both the Federal PowerShock and the Winchester Super X, averaged about 6 inches of deflection with 60 to 70% keyholing. The 338 Winchester Magnum with a 250 grain interlock, a genuinely heavy bullet, still went 3.76 inches off with 60% sideways. One load came through nearly clean. A 4570 loaded with a 325 grain solid copper Lehigh at about 1900 feet per second. 0.63 inches of average deflection and not a single keyholed bullet in 15 shots. Not because it was heavy, because it was a copper solid that would not deform. That distinction runs through his entire results, and it inverts the deer camp theory. The same 338 Winchester Magnum, shooting a lighter 225 grain copper CX, averaged 1.236 inches with 0 keyholes against 3.76 with the heavier lead core bullet. Same rifle, same caliber, and the heavier bullet did worse. The 375 Ruger did it too. 3.38 inches with a 300 grain lead core, 1.46 with a lighter Barnes copper. What keeps a bullet on line is construction, not mass. Bullets that hold their shape stay pointed. Bullets that deform start tumbling. Lucky Gunner ran a smaller version in December of 2020 using 1/5/8 inch pine slat, roughly one real branch, at 25 feet in front of a target at 25 yards. One branch. The 4570, a Federal PowerShock 300 grain out of a Henry, printed 4.2 inches from the aiming point with visible yaw. So the thing the 4570 is carried for in the timber is a story. It does not open a lane. Nothing does. Strip that away and look at what is left for a whitetail at 90 yards. Hornady's Lever Evolution. 325 grain FTX is published at 2,050 feet per second and 3,032 foot-pounds, more energy than anything else here by a wide margin, and that number was measured in a 24-inch test barrel, while the Marlin 1895 on the wall is 18.5. It kicks around 30 foot-pounds. It is the most expensive ammunition on this list. It wrecks shoulder meat on a 200-pound animal. And there is no named, dated, published gel test putting a weight retention number on that FTX bullet, which is worth saying out loud rather than filling with a guess. The rifle does not rescue it either. A Marlin 1895 in the 18.5-inch guide gun configuration handles beautifully in tight cover, short and fast and pointable. But it weighs 7 pounds unloaded, and it shoves that 7 pounds into your shoulder with roughly 4 times the recoil energy of the cartridge that wins this list. Recoil is not a toughness question. It is a flinch question, and flinch is a shot placement question, and shot placement is what recovers deer. Ammunition is the last mark against it. This is the only cartridge here, where a box of premium hunting loads regularly outruns everything else on the shelf, and you are paying that premium for energy you are going to leave in the dirt behind the animal. On a moose or a big black bear, this cartridge earns every dollar. And if you hunt Ohio or Iowa and you also chase black bear with the same rifle, it makes complete sense to own one. On timber whitetails, it is more gun than the job, banned in the state that needs it most, and famous for something it does not do. Number 3 is the 360 Buckhammer. It solves the exact problem that sank the 30-30, and it falls anyway, because the ammunition supply behind it is 2 companies deep. Remington and Federal are the entire list. Everything ranked above it has 6 or more loaders. The cartridge is about 3 years old, the rifles are Henry and Traditions, lever guns and single shots, and no third party has published a dated gel test with a weight retention number on it yet. That is not a performance problem. It is a supply chain with 2 doors, and doors close. The design itself is right. Remington publishes the 180 grain core locked at 2,399 feet per second and 2,302 foot-pounds, and the 200 grain at 2,217. Federal's Power Shock runs 180 grain at 2,374 and a 200 grain at 2,375. All of that comes from a 20-inch test barrel, which is close to the lever guns it lives in, so for once the catalog number is honest about the rifle in your hands. The bullet is 358 diameter in a straight-walled case, so it clears Ohio's 357 floor, clears Michigan's 35 caliber floor, and fits inside the case-length window, clears Iowa's 350 floor, and is legal in Indiana. 30-30 ballistics. Wearing brass that is legal everywhere, the 30-30 is banned. Recoil is lever gun territory, soft enough to hand to a 14-year-old. Put it beside the 2 cartridges ranked above it, and the picture gets clear fast. Against the 350 Legend, it gives up nothing meaningful in the woods, and it hits harder with a heavier bullet. Against the 450 Bushmaster, it gives up penetration and gains back everything the 450 costs you in recoil. On performance alone, this belongs at number 2. The reason it does not sit there has nothing to do with what happens when the bullet arrives. It has to do with what happens when you walk into a store in November of some year that has not come yet, and there is 1 brand of ammunition on the peg, or none. That is a real risk with a 3-year-old cartridge and 2 loaders, and it is a risk you carry for the entire life of the rifle. A Henry lever gun in this chambering runs around 7 pounds and handles like the timber gun it was built to be. And the Tradition single shot is lighter still, but neither one is worth much to you if the ammunition aisle dries up. If that sounds like a 35 Remington to you, it essentially is one, rebuilt for the straight wall map. Remington still publishes the 35 Rem, 200 grain core locked at 2,080 feet per second, and it was the timber cartridge in this country for 80 years. It is dying on the shelf now, showing up on clearance near $50 a box with no new mainstream rifle chambered for it. Part of why is the same brass problem. The 35 Rem case is slightly tapered, so in some of these states it sits in a gray zone depending on how the agency reads its own rule. Remington drew the Buckhammer to leave nothing to interpret. That is the product, not new ballistics, a shape a game warden does not have to think about. Number 2 is the 450 Bushmaster. It is the biggest hammer that is legal in every straight wall state. And it is second, because it is more recoil and more bullet than the animal in front of you requires. A 200-pound whitetail standing at 60 yards in a creek bottom does not need 2,600 foot-pounds driving a 1/4 inch of expanded lead through both shoulders. You pay for that margin in flinch and in ruined meat, and inside 150 yards, it does not buy you a deader deer. What it does buy is the deepest proof on this list. Hornadi's Black Load, the 250 grain FTX, is published at 2,200 feet per second and 2,686 foot-pounds from a 20-inch barrel, still carrying 1,835 feet per second at 100 yards. The testing bench at Grendel Hunter, which is a retailer's lab rather than a university, so weigh it accordingly, shot the 250 grain FTX out of a 16-inch barrel into clear ballistics. At an impact velocity of 1,775 feet per second, it retained 211.4 grains, 85% of its starting weight, and expanded to .665 inches. Slowed to 200-yard impact speed, it held 235 grains, 94%, and drove 26 inches. Remington's 260 grain core locked held 96%. One caution on reading any gel number. Clear ballistics runs longer than calibrated FBI gel, so compare inside one test and never across 2 labs. The legality map, it runs clean. The case is 1.70 inches, under Michigan's 1.80 ceiling. Ohio, Indiana, Iowa, Illinois, all fine. Rifle support is the best of any big bore here because this is the standard big bore AR-15 chambering, so the whole platform is open to you, plus bolt guns from Ruger and Savage. Hornady, Federal, Winchester, Remington, Barnes, Underwood, and HSM all load ammunition for it, running roughly $1.45 to $2.30 a round depending on the bullet. Never cheap, never a scavenger hunt. That platform point is bigger than it sounds for a timber hunter. A 16-inch AR in this chambering is short, muzzle heavy in a way that steadies a standing shot and gives you a fast second round that no lever gun matches. It also takes optics, lights, and slings without a gunsmith. If you already own the lower, you are one upper away from a legal straight-wall deer rifle, and that is the cheapest path onto this list that exists. It also replaces the thing most of these hunters were carrying before the straight-wall rules opened up, which is a 12-gauge slug gun. A slug is not in this ranking because it is not a rifle cartridge, but it is the honest benchmark, and the 450 beats it on every axis that matters in the woods. Flatter, more accurate past 60 yards, dramatically less recoil than a heavy slug load, and it does not require you to carry a shotgun you do not otherwise want. If you are still hunting deer with slugs in a state that now allows this, that is the trade sitting in front of you. If this is the kind of ruler you want run across the rest of your gear, subscribe before the winter. That is the whole channel, somebody reading the fine print on the box so you do not have to. Number 1 is the 350 Legend, and it wins because it is the only cartridge here that loses nothing on any of the three measures. Legal in every straight wall state with no asterisk. Cheapest ammunition on the list, widest selection of rifles and loads, softest recoil by a wide margin, and enough terminal performance on the published record to stop arguing about it inside 150 yards. Start with the record, because that is where the doubt lives. American riflemen shot Winchester's Deer Season XP into clear ballistics from a 16-inch barrel, Kelly Young doing the write-up. The 150 grain extreme point tunneled 17 inches, punching completely through the first block. It expanded to 0.59 and 0.55 inches at the narrow measurement and 0.64 and 0.61 at the widest. It came back weighing 98.7 grains, roughly 2/3 of what it started as. The 180 grain power point in the same test went 29 inches. That load leaves the muzzle at 2,325 feet per second and 1,800 foot-pounds from a 20-inch barrel. You will hear the counter-argument in deer camp, so hear it here first. There are hunters who report the 150 grain Deer Season XP coming apart on heavy shoulder bone and failing to get through on a bad angle. That is community sentiment from hunting forums, not published test data, and it sits against a lab result showing 17 inches and 2/3 weight retention. If you take steep quartering shots, or you want more margin through the front end, the fix is not a different cartridge, it is the 180 grain power point, or one of the bonded loads, and Winchester sells both. Then the number that decides more hunts than any of that. Recoil energy is published around 8.5 foot-pounds, less than the 30-30 at 9.6, and less than the 243 at 10.4. It is the softest shooting cartridge in this video, and it is not close. Soft recoil is not a comfort feature, it is an accuracy feature, and shot placement has killed more deer than energy ever has. Price is about $1.12 a round for Deer Season XP, with Winchester running rebates on it constantly. That is the cheapest hunting ammunition in this video by a wide margin, and it is the difference between a hunter who confirms 0 every season and one who has been running on a 3-year-old sight-in because a box costs $50. The lineup behind it is the deepest here. Winchester alone loads Deer Season XP, PowerPoint, PowerMax Bonded, Copper Impact, and a Subsonic. Federal, Hornady, Browning, Barnes, and Underwood are all in as well. If one load disappears, 5 others are on the same peg, which is exactly the security the Buckhammer does not have yet. The rifles are just as wide. Winchester's XPR, the Ruger American, the Savage Axis, all of them bolt guns you can buy new for the price of a used lever action, most of them wearing 16 to 20-inch barrels that carry well in cover, and the entire AR-15 platform on top of that. New hunter, budget hunter, someone outfitting a kid, someone who already owns an AR, every one of those people has a door into this cartridge. Ohio, Michigan, Indiana, Iowa, Illinois. Legal in everyone. The case for taking the 450 Bushmaster instead is real, and if it fits you, buy it. If the same rifle handles hogs and black bear as well as deer, if you take shoulder shots on purpose, if you want the most weight retention available inside the straight wall rules, the 450 holds 85 to 94%, where the 350 holds 2/3. That difference is measured, not marketed. You pay for it in recoil, in dollars, and in shoulder meat. 3 names are missing from this list on purpose. The 400 Legend is the one that nearly made it. Winchester publishes the 215 grain PowerPoint at 2,250 feet per second and 2,416 foot-pounds from a 20-inch barrel. It is straight-walled, and it is legal across the same map as the 350. It got cut on one thing. Winchester is the only company loading it. The 215 grain PowerPoint stickers near $49 a box, and the rifle list is thin. A cartridge with one loader can be discontinued out from under you in a single season. The day a second maker picks it up, it walks onto this list and takes the 30-30 spot. The 44 Remington Magnum is legal everywhere. Straight wall and fine inside 100 yards, but energy and trajectory fall off faster than everything ranked above it. The 35 Whelan and the 358 Winchester are excellent timber cartridges that fail the same way the 30-30 does, bottlenecked brass in states that will not take it. Run the ruler back across all 5, and the order stops being arguable. The 350 Legend is legal everywhere. Cheapest to feed, deepest rifle selection, softest recoil, 17 inches in gel. The 450 is legal everywhere and hits harder, and charges you for it. The Buckhammer is legal everywhere and shoots soft, and asks you to bet on 2 loaders. The 4570 is the most powerful and the least suited, and Michigan will not take it. The 30-30 is the best of all of them at killing a deer in the woods, and the worst of all of them at being legal where most of you do it. Whichever one you carry, remember what the deflection number said. 6 inches offline through 15 yards of cover. 4 inches offline through 1 pine slat. The cartridge on your barrel does not open a lane for you. You find the lane or you let the deer walk and you get another one. That part was never about the caliber.